Coffee cup clinks, night rain against a window. The American diner isn't just a place to eat, it's a stage set for everyday life. Plates slide, coffee flows, and stories cross like headlights on a wet highway. But behind the chrome and the pie case is a saga that traces the nation's changing taste in food, freedom, and the open road. This is the rise and fall of the American diner. The diner's story begins not in a dining room but on a curb. In the 1870s, American cities pulsed into the evening. Newspapers went to press at midnight. Factory whistles marked shifts, not supper time. In Providence, Rhode Island, a young entrepreneur named Walter Scott parked a horse-drawn lunch wagon outside newspaper offices and served hot coffee, sandwiches, and pies to printers and night workers. He wasn't selling cuisine, he was selling access, a warm bite at an hour when the city otherwise slept. Scott was far from alone for long. The idea spread quickly. Compact kitchens on wheels with hinged side panels, bar stools inside, and lanterns throwing a warm glow onto cold streets. By the 1890s, specialized builders appeared, selling prefabricated wagons to would-be proprietors. These wagons were the ancestors of diners, not restaurants for society, but street-level democracies where newsboys, mill hands, and newly arrived immigrants ate side by side. As cities modernized, wheels gave way to static lunch cars, narrow structures modeled after railroad coaches. The analogy wasn't accidental. America equated railroads with speed, modernity, and the promise of elsewhere. The lunch car borrowed not just the look, but the logic. Maximum service in minimal space, optimized like a galley kitchen with a counter separating cook and customer by just a few inches in one honest conversation. By the 1910s, a new word edged into the American vocabulary: diner. The term shortened dining car, signaling both aspiration and evolution. The business model hardened into something distinctly American. Prefabricated buildings constructed in factories, shipped by rail or truck, and installed on a concrete pad. Owners could buy a diner much like a family might buy a house kit, complete with stools, booths, and a grill line ready to fire. Regional manufacturers became legends. Worcester Lunch Car Company in Massachusetts turned out wooden steel beauties with arched roofs and tiled floors. In New Jersey, the Jerry O'Mahony Diner Company embraced metal and glass, championing longer counters, more booths, and later the sleek lines of Art Deco. Silk City Diners of Paterson followed with robust designs that balanced durability and style. Each maker left a fingerprint: the radius of a corner, the geometry of a window, the pattern of the floor tile, details that aficionados still read like maker's marks. Diners grew with the nation's new tastes. The automobile expanded catchment areas and changed the map of hunger. A noon rush could now include traveling salesmen and motorists in from the next town over. Hours stretched later, coffee became bottomless. And as Prohibition pushed nightlife away from saloons, late-hour diners caught the overflow, becoming safe harbors for musicians, shift workers, and couples bargaining for one more hour of conversation. The 1920s also brought a subtle shift from the purely functional to the aspirational. Exterior ceramic tile, lead-edged glass, and enameled panels elevated the curb appeal. Inside, back bars mirrored the glow of domed pendant lamps. The diner sold more than eggs and hash. It sold a feeling of modernity close enough to touch and affordable enough to taste. The Great Depression could have ended the story. Instead, it defined the diner's role. In hard times, a short-order menu with transparent pricing, coffee 5 cents, blue plate special 25, was not just a bargain, it was a compact of trust. The counter erased hierarchy. The cook and the customer shared the same air and the same jokes. If you had a dime, you had a place. For owners, the prefabricated model held another advantage: low overhead. A family could run a diner with a skeleton crew and long hours, weathering thin margins by hustling volume. In communities where factories closed and storefronts went dark, the diner's lights stayed on. A cheap meal and a refill of hope.
World War II sharpened the diner's strengths: speed, efficiency, and standardization. With rationing in place, cooks innovated. Meatloaf stretched with breadcrumbs, creative uses of eggs and potatoes, and the famous everything omelet as a practical catch-all. Women, already essential in diner labor, ran many operations outright while men were away. The war's end brought a surge of prosperity, and the diner stepped onto its brightest stage yet. Manufacturers embraced stainless steel and streamlined design. The exterior became a promise of the future. Corrugated gleam, neon banding, bullet-nosed corners, and speedline trim that made even a stationary building look like it was moving. Inside, booths upholstered in vinyl offered privacy. Pie cases turned dessert into theater. The jukebox transformed the room into a shared living room, nickels purchasing a few minutes of soundtrack for a table's mood. The diner was democratic by design. It didn't require reservations or proper attire. It didn't care if you were a teenager in a Letterman jacket, a nurse coming off nights, or a traveling salesman with a sample case. What mattered was timing and appetite. Kids fed quarters into the jukebox. Veterans sat with coffee that never seemed to empty. Second shift workers claimed 2 a.m. as their sunrise. This was the diner's first golden age. Not just in numbers, but in meaning. Post-war optimism mingled with the reassurance of the familiar. The menu was a grammar of comfort. Clubs and melts, griddled burgers with a lace of crust, pancakes as big as the plate, and a dessert list where pie wasn't an afterthought. It was an identity. Yet even as the chrome shone brightest, the landscape underneath was shifting. In 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act supercharged a national network of interstates, redrawing travel patterns in a single generation. Where diners had long relied on downtown foot traffic and local commuters, new highways funneled motorists past town centers to the edges. And soon beyond them, on those edges, a new rival appeared, the fast food chain. Its promise was consistency from coast to coast. The burger you loved in one state would taste the same 2 states over. For families on the move and the growing suburban middle class, predictability was its own kind of comfort. Diners could be idiosyncratic, which was their charm. But idiosyncrasy is hard to scale. Suburbanization compounded the challenge. As people moved outward, the old downtown lunch crowds thinned. Diners that stayed urban saw weekday lunch remain steady, but late-night business fade as new entertainment districts sprawled. Those that followed their customers to the suburbs had to compete not only with drive-ins and chains, but with household kitchens now equipped with modern appliances and a growing culture of eating at home. And yet, many diners adapted. Owners added more parking. Some grafted Googie-inspired canopies to signal modernity to motorists. Menus widened. Greek salads, Italian specials, and all-day breakfast, reflecting the immigrant families who increasingly owned and operated these businesses. What began as standard fare became a kaleidoscope of regional and ethnic influences, a preview of the cultural chapter to come. By the end of the 1960s, America could still recognize a diner by silhouette. The chrome, the band of windows, the neon script promising open 24 hours. But the nation staring back from the coffee's surface had changed. Highways crisscrossed, suburbs bloomed, chains rose. The diner, once the revolutionary newcomer, stood at midlife, full of memories and facing new questions about identity, economics, and survival. To understand what was at stake, we have to look beyond architecture and menus to what a diner meant. To teenagers and truckers, to night workers, to novelists, to civil rights activists, and small-town families. Because the diner is not just a business model, it is a cultural language, spoken fluently in coffee cups and clattering plates.
The counter was the diner's beating heart. It was a theater of immediacy, the hiss of bacon on the griddle, the call and response between waitress and cook, the quick pour of coffee before a customer even asked. At the counter, everyone was equal. A day laborer could sit beside a doctor, a novelist next to a night shift nurse. The stools leveled status. Conversation flowed with the same rhythm as the sizzle from the grill. For many, the counter was an antidote to loneliness. Travelers found company in small talk, locals swapped gossip with staff who knew their orders by heart. A regular didn't need to speak, a raised eyebrow could summon a refill. In a society stratified by class, race, and occupation, the counter remained a rare shared stage. If the counter was public theater, the booth was private stage. Teenagers claimed booths as territory, dropping nickels into the jukebox to score their conversations. Families made them home for Sunday breakfast after church. Couples leaned across formica tables, their words competing with the clatter of plates. For writers, artists, and thinkers, booths doubled as workspaces. Jack Kerouac scrawled notes in diners. Journalists drafted copy between coffee refills. The booth's padded walls were just enough insulation to carve a bubble of thought within the constant motion of America outside. Unlike fine dining rooms or private clubs, the diner made no distinctions. Its greatest achievement was its role as a crossroads. Truckers, traveling salesmen, college kids, factory workers, all sat within a few feet of one another. This collision wasn't accidental. Diners were often open late, sometimes 24 hours, becoming lifelines for night workers and refugees, for anyone caught between shifts, jobs, or stages of life. This inclusivity made diners natural stages for social change. In the 1960s, sit-ins at lunch counters became flashpoints in the civil rights movement. The symbolism was powerful. If the counter was democracy's stage, then exclusion was not just bad business. It was a betrayal of the diner's very promise. For post-war youth, the diner was more than a pit stop. It was a clubhouse. Cheap meals meant independence without breaking allowance. The jukebox gave them power over the atmosphere, shaping identity through music. By the 1950s and 60s, the diner became woven into the fabric of pop culture, immortalized in films, songs, and photographs as a stage for rebellion, romance, and self-expression. Hollywood cemented the myth. From James Dean brooding in Rebel Without a Cause to countless road movies, the diner's neon glow became cinematic shorthand for America itself. A land restless, open, and forever refueling.